And welcome back to the First and Goal podcast. My name is Lewis. Next to me, as always, my beautiful co-host, Laraib. We're here to break down week 4 of the NFL season, Laraib. Unfortunately, no week 3 review. I was pretty busy, caught up with some things at work, but super excited to give you a full breakdown of this upcoming week. There were certainly some good games in week 3, but for the most part, there were some crazy upsets, the blocked kicks. Every week in the NFL is going to give you something. And even when I was talking about last week in our predictions episode, but even though this week doesn't look that crazy, something crazy is going to happen. And like you have a team like the Browns upsetting the Packers, right? So you can always expect the unexpected in the NFL season, and it'll consistently deliver it. Laura, I don't know if I'm kind of putting you on the spot right here. Did you want to do the picks from last week? Do we even have those up?
We don't have
If
them pulled up, but it was a tie, just to let
tie.
you guys know. So far throughout the season, we were talking about it earlier, but we'll be hit on all of our locks and missed on all of the upsets. And last week was especially a week where it really would have sucked to lose for either one of us. There were so many different games we disagreed on. My sharpest one had to have been picking the Bears over the Cowboys. I really like that one. That one ended up smashing for me. And then just a couple boneheaded picks that really did not go either of our ways. I'm really glad because it really would have sucked, honestly, with the picks I made, like, and especially the way that we lean to lose that week. So I'm happy it ended up being a tie.
Yeah, shout out the Vikings for making me look pretty smart. But man, I mean, Chiefs pulled it out. But yeah, a lot of bad. Week 3 is always the toughest one. But now we're getting to the quarter mark of the season almost. Some things are unfolding. Some teams who may have started out as a surprise, or now it's like, hey, now you're just a good team, and we expect things out of you, right? And I'm assuming a few teams probably popped in your mind when I said that. So now, as we're getting forward in the season, the more and more that these teams just play well, it's like, all right, you're kind of proving it to us as we go forward. I think once we get in like middle October, that we'll have a really good view of where these teams lie, who's really talented, who's kind of pretenders at this point. But I'm expecting still some crazy upsets, some crazy mismatches this upcoming week. So let's go ahead and get right into it, Larav. And we're going to go ahead. We're going to start with Thursday night football. We're filming this on Wednesday night before Thursday. So as of now, the line opened up Arizona as a 1.5 point favorite, but it sits as Seattle as a 1.5 point favorite on the road facing the Cardinals. Seattle coming off a very impressive victory over the Saints. Their special teams and defense really was the story of that game. Just constantly putting pressure on the Saints offense to match. But, block punt, you had a punt return touchdown, and just some really key plays from every facet of the ball played well, albeit against the Saints. And the Cardinals, tough, heartbreaking loss against the 49ers where, they really, they go up by 3 and you lose some key players in that matchup. And then you just let Mac Jones and Christian McCaffrey go all the way down the field and set up a game-winning field goal for Pinheiro. Two 2-1 teams, Laurent. And I want to start with, if this is a season that we should take the Cardinals serious, this is a game they need to win. This is a game at home against a divisional rival who's, pretty even. We would say at least Vegas thinks this is a pretty even game. What do the Cardinals need to do here to prove they are a legitimate team, or they're just another fluke in the pan, Cardinals team that we're used to seeing?
I mean, it all relies on Kyler Murray so much. The mistakes he will or won't make in this game. Going back to last week in that game against the 49ers, they had the ball, they're up too late, and it's 4th and 2, and they decide, all right, we're gonna go for it here, and force the ball on 4th down, and it ends up being an incomplete pass, and they go on to lose that game. Then you have Marvin Harrison Jr., who just drops a wide open, almost like a fair catch type play. He just drops the catch. It's just a team that, they're going to ride the wave. They're going to go up and down. And I mean, I don't know what to expect out of this team. Just a team that's always going to be middle of the pack. Now you lose James Conner. The one highlight of their team has been Will Johnson, the highest graded rookie so far through 3 weeks. And he's been really impressive. And he will have his hands full with JSN, who has really emerged onto the scene. But it's just a team you just kind of have middle of the road expectations for. But they're whipping out the new NFL rivalry jerseys for the first time this season. I mean, that's going to be one highlight for this game. But for the Cardinals, I think it really, for them, is keeping the Seahawks offense on the sideline, really taking the air out of the ball in this one. I really like Trey Benson, uh, second year player picked in the third round last year. Let's see what they can do with him as the bell cow in this game. But it's just a team I don't have big expectations for.
Yeah, I'm leaning Seattle in this matchup. Now, I don't think it's going to be the drubbing that we saw last weekend for the Seahawks, but I think that they're just a little more confident in who they are in terms of just identity for this team, right? They're a team that clearly wants to run the ball, play really tough, disciplined defense. And, through 3 weeks and yeah, obviously small sample size, this front four has been one of the most dominant front fours in all of football. Getting consistent pressure with four. They did blitz a little bit against the Saints last week, but I think that was more of we really don't think Rattler can beat a blitz. Let's just, put our throat in his neck right now. And Rattler did make some plays. So I didn't think they needed to blitz, but I think it was just McDonald honestly just trying different packages and things. And against Kyler, who just wants to run out of the pocket as much as possible, you just have all these really rangy, athletic front seven players who can do a lot. I think starting with just Nuosu just as a edge rusher, just hybrid kind of linebacker guy, just super fast in open space, can really lock down a quarterback, and then all that beef in the middle to really stymie a running game that you mentioned. No James Conner, obviously. And that really hurts this Cardinals team because he was kind of their third and short, second and short, could get you those tough yards. That, frankly, this Cardinals team without him, it just seems like they have way too much finesse. And clearly there's a just disconnect offensively throughout their whole team. Marvin Harrison Jr. can just not find a consistent rhythm playing alongside Kyler Murray. And if they can't find the one consistent thing that they had in their offense that was James Conner, I think it's going to be a struggle, especially on a short week, trying to figure out a game plan that you kind of built your offense around James Conner, right? The two-man dynamic. So I think it's a tough spot against a good defense, even though it's at home. I like the Seahawks in this one. I'm going to go lower scoring, 24-13.
Yeah, also like the Seahawks, their secondary. I mean, huge emphasis on the front seven. They were playing really well, but let's not act like the secondary has not been stellar as well. Josh Jobe has really come into his own. I know not the household name, but Darion Kendrick, interception in 2 straight games. Devin Witherspoon and Julian Love will be back in this game after missing the last 2 weeks. I really like what this unit has become. You see a lot of Ravens fans the past couple days on X missing their old defensive coordinator Mike McDonald, just what we can say a defensive guru or a defensive mastermind. He's really come into his own. I talked about the Seahawks team last week and what expectations I had for them in a game like that against the Saints. Now, they played fantastic, but there wasn't really much to pull out of that game because it got out of hand so early. This is going to be another one of those tests. Now you're going on the road, a divisional opponent in prime time. What do you got here once again? I think the Seahawks win 27-21.
And, moving or about to move on, but I just want a quick thought here. We really haven't seen much of Sam Darnold really being tested this season. His first big test was that, game potentially tying, potentially winning drive against the Niners in week one, where he lost the fumble and looked like the biggest dope on the planet, right? Um, but if this is a tight game, it'll be another interesting test for Sam Darnold to, connecting with the weapons. Now he's had built a better rapport with some of these guys. Clearly, he has a good chemistry with JSN on the outside, but I want to see more from Sam Darnold in implementing the game. Obviously, you want to establish the run, but really getting more of his guys involved, seeing what Cooper Kupp can bring to the offense, getting more of the tight ends, some of the running backs involved in the passing game, which I think will just help this Seattle team and their confidence in Sam Darnold moving forward. But let's move on now to our second international game of the season, the first one that'll be played on the early Sunday window, the classic early Sunday NFL game that I wake up at halftime and like, oh shoot, I forgot to set my lineup. This is a game I have no one in my lineup. Thank God. We have the Minnesota Vikings traveling to Pittsburgh, or traveling to Dublin, I should say, to face the Steelers. Minnesota is favored by 2.5 in Dublin. Quick thoughts on the international game, Laraib. Do you think is there any advantage a team would have internationally versus playing in the States that we might be overlooking in a matchup just regularly?
I will say the Vikings have gone international. They went last year. So they have some experience with that. The Jaguars, they always, have some experience going overseas. Uh, I mean, outside of that, really, I mean, both teams have to travel to a completely
Right.
different time zone. I will say Aaron Rodgers also played last year's a little bit of a rematch for him against the Vikings in across over the pond, you can
I
say.
think that game was in London.
I just want to say overall, this international push from the NFL, I really don't see the huge benefit of it all. If I'm a European citizen. Football is way down low on the list of games I want to be playing professionally. You look at soccer, you look at basketball. Oh, okay, contact sports, but then you look at football, you guys just getting drilled in the fucking head all the time, getting concussions, breaking bones. No one wants to do that shit, NFL.
You don't
Same
have to
thing with
play it. You could
flag.
just like watching it.
No, no. Well, they're having this huge push. You want to have teams over there. No
Hmm.
one in Europe wants to play football professionally. I'm telling you that. No one in Brazil wants to play football professionally, getting concussions, just twisting their ACL every other, just the most gruesome injuries you can think of on all of sports. No one wants to do that shit. Only Americans for some reason, because that's the way we are over here. We're rough and tough. But those sissy European guys, they don't like to do that shit. I really don't like this push where we keep on having, oh, we want to have football in Europe. We want to have football in Europe. I just don't think that's a future I see for the NFL. They
Pretty
have a great
pretty
market here.
anti-immigration of you, Laraib, to really
They
push
have a
this.
they have a tight grip on the market here in the States, and that's gonna, focus on that shit, Goodell. But anyway, getting into this game, yeah, the Vikings, a team I had to eat my crow on Carson
Oh yeah.
Wentz. Now, he didn't do much in that game, but two touchdowns returned, two you know turnovers returned for touchdowns by the defense. Carson Wentz a six, you know, threw six passes in the second half of that game against the Bengals. And now this week, you're facing a Steelers team who, let's be honest, got really lucky last week. They had the Patriots turned over the ball four times, and they only scored 21 points total in that game. I'm really not, liking what I see from the Steelers on offense. Besides, outside of Jalen Warren, they really not have, flashed anything for me. I think the Vikings, just ground and pound this ball once again and leave Dublin with the W.
And even the Steelers' defense, Laraib, has been pretty underwhelming, especially for the standard that we set for this group, really, ever since ever since we've been alive, right? Really. But you just even last week they hold the Patriots to 14 points, but they're outgained by nearly 150 yards. And like you mentioned, if it wasn't for four turnovers, right, that game could have been a lot uglier than it was. And I just thought that New England was able to move the ball at will. They just shot themselves in the foot one too many times, and the Steelers didn't take advantage. They did enough to win, sure, but this defense still has not impressed me whatsoever, and especially that rush defense. And I think the Vikings, with a rejuvenated offensive line, still no Darisaw, but I think they found something with Jordan Mason these past few weeks, just this bell cow, really tough yard running back. Get a little, obviously, Aaron Jones out with the hamstring injury, which I think is kind of a good thing for this offense that they can focus on more power running, power football, grind out those tough yards, and then allow Carson Wentz, an experienced veteran. You're not expecting him to be a huge game record, game beater. Hey, I'm speaking objectively here. Even though he is and he can win you a game on his own, it's play within the system. Use the treasure trove of weapons we always talk about when we talk about this
Jordan
Vikings team.
Addison is back for this game as well.
That's another big thing that Jordan Addison just finished his 3 game suspension. So another weapon back in the arsenal. And you could say the one thing, this receiver room was kind of thin, but now you move Thielen to more of a wide receiver 3 role that he's more comfortable in kind of working in the slot, getting those tough yards on the middle of the field. Addison more of an outside dominant receiver that you could pair next to Justin Jefferson. That all of a sudden I could be quarterback out there. I mean, if it wasn't for this dang shoulder, I'd be so good. Now, um, that I think that he's in a good position to thrive. I don't think the Steelers can take advantage of that. And Aaron Rodgers against this, he did see Flores' defense last year, and it caused him significant problems. And I would say he's on a less talented team, especially that offensive line. I think the Vikings are going to get a lot of pressure, and then Aaron Rodgers, long plane ride. He's not trying to sit on that plane aching. I think someone once said he doesn't want to get hit. And I think that's gonna be the case here. I think the Vikings win this game in a dominant fashion yet again. I'm going Vikings 31, Steelers 20.
And I'm going to go Vikings 27-21, a late garbage time, Rodgers drive makes it closer than what it looks like. But yeah, Vikings air out the ball. Lewis, let's go ahead and move on to our regular scheduled games on Sunday, starting with the Chargers traveling to New York to play the Giants. Chargers favored by 6.5. This line moved up from 5.5 to 6.5 after Jackson Dart got announced as the starting quarterback in this game. Lewis, what are you expecting from this Giants offense to change? Or how are they going to change with Jackson Dart in at quarterback?
What doesn't make sense to me, and I'm going to focus big picture here, even though I'll turn it back into the game. But what doesn't make sense to me is if Jackson Dart, you deemed that he was not ready to start the year. You said clearly he needs time to develop, to mature, and we're going to put out the veteran. He's going to learn underneath Russell Wilson, and then we'll see something. But it's week 4. We're not even through September yet, and you're already saying, nope, come on, Dart. I don't understand why he wasn't starting sooner. They keep saying in the telecast that Dayball has a package ready for Dart that if they needed him, he'd have his own set of plays and dimensions that he could go into a game and use his type of play style. But it's just weird that why make the change now? You're playing a really good Chargers defense, kind of putting him in a pretty tough position to start. Now, when would be the good time? That's a fair question. I just think it should have been a little bit longer in general. Because I think this is a really tough spot for him in this game. Especially coming off a Sunday night game, a lot of this team pretty banged up after a pretty physical game against the Chiefs. That now you're brand new offense, basically for a lot of these guys. Andrew Thomas in and out of the lineup, still dealing with a foot injury, and this offensive line still figuring out a lot of things. Tyrone Tracy now missing time. You're relying a lot on another rookie in Cam Scadaboo, who had a pretty impressive performance. But this is going to be an uphill battle for Dart in his first start against the Chargers that I think he's not going to be ready for. I think they put him in a really tough position in this one. And obviously, the Chargers have been proven that they're the better team. Now, it still is the Chargers. I'll be saying the Chargers are moving me, Laraib. Now, not Herbert, but the Chargers themselves are moving me. They found a way to win a game they were losing where it was like, that's the inverse of what should happen last week. They, instead of the Chargers finding a way to lose, they found a way to win. And if they are a good team, they need to come out here and put belt to ass against young Jackson Dart and really, flex their muscle against a Giants team that should not be sharing the field with them. So I like the Chargers in this one.
Yeah, going back to Jackson Dart real quick, it really feels like this is not a move that Daboll wanted to make. More so something the GM or the owner forces on him. More so the outside noise is kind of forcing his hand. Like, hey man, if I want to keep this job for 2, 3 more weeks, I think I got to put in Jackson Dart. And so we'll see what that looks like. But yeah, like you mentioned for the Chargers, they're winning games that they usually lose, and Quentin Johnson is catching passes that he usually drops. So we're having a little bit of a sort of Freaky Friday situation here, going from losers to winners. And this is a big spot. Again, just like last week was, to get a strong foothold, 3-0 your division, 3-0 against everyone against your division. Now you're going on the road against the Giants in a spot where you should be 4-0. I think that the Chargers put belt to ass, like you mentioned. Jackson Dart, he'll get his garbage time throws in, but I think the Chargers win 31-17.
And I agree. I think this is going to be a big blowout. I don't think the Giants are even getting that many points. I'm excited to see potentially what Dart's connection with Neighbors will be. It seemed like Neighbors and Russ could really never get on the same page outside of that insane game against the Cowboys, which, by the way, was 2 weeks ago. Russell Wilson had the best quarterback performance of the entire season 2 weeks ago, and now he got benched. It's crazy how this league works sometimes. But I think it's going to be Chargers 33-10 and a pretty to 9. I don't think that's a touchdown will be scored. But let's move on now to our next highlight game against two good teams. We have the Philadelphia Eagles traveling to Tampa to face the Bucks. Philly is a 3.5 point favorite, and the champs do it again, Laraib. They go on the road and face the Rams, and when they looked like they were, just hey, this is a game that we weren't ready for. We're losing 19-6 at half. The Rams are just playing better than us. They didn't go home. They flipped the script. They used a lot more of Jalen Hurts' arm rather than his legs, a lot more of A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith in the passing game. and they find a way to win. Obviously, it took a blocked field goal at the end to, secure the win. But that's what champions do. They just find ways to win. This was kind of like what we saw with the Chiefs last year. There was ugly games. It didn't look pretty. We were kind of all season like, I mean, they won, but and that's kind of what we're seeing with the Eagles right now. They're finding ways to win, and I'm very impressed with what I've been seeing so far. Now you're traveling to Tampa to face another 3-0 team. Tampa so far this season, just the comeback kids, every single game coming back from deficits in the fourth quarter and pulling it through. And you got to ask yourself, like, is this a sustainable way of playing football week after week after week? I really don't think so, because not only is it just not a sustainable way to play football, obviously, you can't expect to come back every week, especially not against good teams. The three teams they've beaten so far are combined 1-8. Now you can say the Texans, we believe, are a good team, but still, they're 0-3. You beat the Falcons, who, golly, they looked like garbage last week. And then the Jets last week, where not only are these games close and it's not against the greatest opponents, you still give the Bucs credit and Baker a ton of credit for finding ways to win, but they're also dropping a lot of players like flies. Obviously, Mike Evans goes out last week with his yearly hamstring flare up that it's going to take him 4 to 5 weeks to return. Uh, Good news, Godwin seems to be coming back this week for the offense, though, and potentially Wirfs as well. But you're still missing two other offensive linemen. Kalijah Kancey out for the season on that defensive front. And it just seems like every one step forward for the Bucs is two steps back in the injury department. So against this Philly team who, didn't get too high, didn't get too low, found a way to win, I just think this is a tough matchup for the Bucs, just talent-wise.
Yeah, and of course I got to ride with my guy, Jalen Hurts. Everyone, just like another Justin Herbert situation here. He
No, it's
can't,
not.
he can't do it. He can't win. He's not a winner.
Except he has.
He's a loser, and he can't throw the ball. Guess what he did? The Saquon Barkley had one rushing yard, and I think in the second half, they could not run the ball at all. They put it all on Jalen Hurts' shoulders. Fourth down, fourth and goal, game on the line. You put the ball in Jalen Hurts' hands, and he delivers like he always does. And now you're facing the
Like
Bucks
Herbert
team.
never does. But go on.
Hey, 3-0. Um, No, and now you're facing a Bucks team who has had their number. The Bucks are 4-1 against the Eagles in their last 5 games. The last time Jalen Hurts lost a game that he started and finished was against his Bucks team last year, early in the season. They have just a way to really stymie the run for this Eagles team. But we saw it last week. The Eagles, I think they really figured something out offensively with their new coordinator. I think they're going to be able to throw the ball on this Bucks team and just find a way to win. Both these teams really have had to claw their ways to victory, but I just see more paths to success for this Eagles team than I do for the Bucks. This is going to come down to the wire once again, but I think the Eagles win 26-23.
I agree. I think that, maybe even Baker does take the lead in the fourth quarter. But I've been that impressed with Jalen Hurts and just this Eagles offense and their fortitude of just finding ways to win, never quitting. That I agree. I think that's going to be a really tough, fun, close game, awesome noon game that we're going to have served to us on a silver platter. That might just take the full screen. I might not even need red zone. I will take red zone, but I'm going with the Eagles in this one, 27-23. Late touchdown from Dallas Goedert puts them in the lead. Let's go on to our next game, Laraib. We have a 3-0 team facing a 2-1 team. Those teams are the Colts and the Rams. Take a guess who's 3-0? It's the Colts, believe it or not. Um, Colts are 3.5 point underdogs, though, on the road. And you got to see, looking at this Colts resume, they kind of steal a win against the Broncos in week 2. And besides that, they kind of face scrubs in weeks 1 and weeks 3. So they're 3-0, but we can both say that this is their biggest test of the season so far. And being 3.5 point underdogs, they've looked really good, but this is a different weight class they're entering in a matchup against the Rams, who really should have won that game against the Eagles last week if it wasn't for a blocked field goal and just a kind of a collapse in the second half. So, what can the Colts do, or really, what could they do in this game for you to say that, hey, this team is buying into the hype and they're a legitimate, not only division contender, but potential AFC contender.
It has to be run the ball. We saw the Rams have a perfect game plan for Saquon Barkley last week, and they completely stymied the run for the Eagles. And the Rams, they're going to be trying to do the same exact thing against this Colts team. Jonathan Taylor, I think, averaging 112 yards per game rushing the ball, certainly in line to be Offensive Player of the Year at the pace he's on. And what that rushing attack has really done is opened up the play action game for Daniel Jones, allowed him to, really hit on the deep ball to Alec Pierce, to Adonai Mitchell, to Michael Pittman Jr., who's also been really impressive. And of course, Tyler Warren has been the middle of the field safety blanket for him. But it all really starts with Jonathan Taylor up front. And I think that's going to be the key to success for the Colts. I think this Rams team lost a really, tough game last week. Now they're gonna go back home and they're gonna have Jonathan Taylor rammed down their throat. I really did not like what I saw out of that offense in the second half. Just looked completely anemic. And I think this Colts defense has been sneaky good this year. Like you mentioned, maybe not against the greatest opponents in the world, but you play who you play. I think this is going to be a huge spot for the Colts. They're thinking the same thing. The Texans right now are 0-3. The Titans, we just beat them last week. And the Jaguars really have not been that impressive this season with hospital ball thrower Trevor Lawrence. This is a big spot for them to be 4-0 in their division. I really like them on the road.
Yeah, well, I mean, we just talked about the recipe, like you mentioned last week, that the Rams had against the Eagles, and we gave Jalen Hurts a ton of credit for showing us time and time again that he can find ways to win. Even when the run is stopped, he can show up. And I haven't seen that yet from Daniel Jones. Now, can he show me something? Can these receivers, can these playmakers show me something in this game? They absolutely can. But defensively, I still have questions about this Colts team. I don't think they've played really an elite passing offense all season long, and I think they're going to get probably the best passing offense they're going to play all season in this Rams team. I mean, Puka's just been on another level this season as just the ultimate safety blanket, stretching the field, doing whatever he needs to for the team to win. And Devontae Adams recently just has this deep threat, beating any type of coverage you throw at him. He looks like he's playing some of the best football he's played since the Aaron Rodgers days, Green Bay Aaron Rodgers days. Um, so I'm extremely impressed with this Rams passing offense, and I think it's going to expose a lot of this Colts or test a lot of this Colts defense. And then ultimately it falls on Indiana Jones, on Daniel Jones. Can he pull off that Jalen Hurts? Hey, run game's not working. Let me go to my plan B. Let me try to use my arm, hit these playmakers. And until I see that happen, I'm not going to bet on it. I am picking the Rams in this game just because they're the proven commodity and I know what I'm going to get. They had a tough loss last week. Sean McVay is a really good coach. I think he's going to help them bounce back, and they're going to get the win here. I'm going to go with the Rams in this one, 24 to Colts 20.
And I'm going to go with the Colts 27-24. I think Matthew Stafford missed one too many passes for my liking last week, and I think he might struggle once again in this one, Lewis. But let's go ahead and move on to the game of the week. We have the Ravens traveling to Kansas City to play the Chiefs. The Ravens 2.5-point favorites in this game. And this is just a game that, I mean, we're both excited for, but really not as excited for as we would be, 2, 3, 4 years ago when both of these teams were just humming at extreme levels. Now you have a Ravens team who just got dominated on both sides of the line, a Chiefs team who struggles to score, more than 21 points in a game. And so what are you looking for in this game, Lewis, against these two AFC Titans?
Well, it's funny because the biggest weakness of both teams is counteracted by the other team being pretty weak in that, right? I mean, this Ravens offensive line has not been great at protecting so far this season. But the Chiefs haven't been able to generate a decent pass rush. Meanwhile, the Ravens have been getting run over all season long by all these elite rushing teams. The Chiefs can't run the ball. So it's kind of weird because usually it's strength on strength in these matchups, like you mentioned, where it's, oh, now we can see Lamar Jackson against Chris Jones and this elite Chiefs defense with Spagnuolo. How is he going to react? And Patrick Mahomes against this uber talented front seven of the Ravens. Like, how is he going to dissect the middle of the field? Kelsey against, Kyle Hamilton. That's going to be an electric matchup. Now it's like, oh, it's going to be an ugly game, right? What I'm looking for in this game, number one, ball security, Mr. King Henry. It's got to be in his head all week long. First 3 weeks, he's had a fumble in each game. Two of them being pretty deadly fumbles that have immediately led to the other team, not if not coming back, but securing the win late in these games. And he's rushing the ball effectively outside of the Cleveland game, but it's just the fumbles and these key moments that are killing him. I think he personally needs to shrink his arms because they're a little too long. There's a lot of wiggle room. Now, if he just had it right there, it would be tough. But when he's got that big arm, look at all that room. Just punch it right out. I don't think he's going to shrink his arms, though. That's my hot take. But are they going to be able to establish that running game? Can they run on this Chiefs front seven, which, hasn't been that bad this year against the run? It's really been their secondary that's been getting got. So you're looking for a lot of Zay Flowers down the field. Rashad Bateman got a lot more involved last week against the Lions. And Lamar, yes, we can say the offensive line has not been to the standard, but he's also just taking a lot of sacks. There's a lot of opportunities where he gets outside the pocket, nothing's open for him, and instead of just throwing the ball away, living to see another down, he holds it for an extra second, trying to make a spectacular play happen. And then these defensive linemen are just keying in on him and making great plays and bringing him down. So against a disciplined, Spagnuolo defense, Lamar needs to get the ball out. He needs to just throw it away and play patient because his defense he can't rely on to get consistent stops. And when you say the biggest weakness of the Ravens is their defense and the biggest weakness of the offense or of the Chiefs is their offense, at least the Chiefs have Patrick Mahomes on their offense and Andy Reid as the ship captain to where you can say they'll have a plan. Like, even if the tight end room is not as good as it once was, the running backs can't move the ball, the receivers are drop prone and they're not as effective. You still have Mahomes, you still have Andy Reid, and they can cobble up a game plan against a familiar opponent who, quite frankly, they've dominated. So in this game at home, I think it's the ultimate get right game for either of these teams. And the team who loses is going to have a very long uphill battle this season. And I think that the team that needs this game more and is going to be hungrier for this win is the Kansas City Chiefs. And I am favoring them at home in this ball game.
And for that exact reason, I am picking the Baltimore Ravens. La Marvelous. What do you got for me here? I think Patrick Mahomes is going to be thrown to Tyquan Thornton and 100-year-old Kareem Hunt.
Good
And you really
players.
expect angry at the ground Isaiah Pacheco to put up huge numbers against this Ravens defense. Um, I just think the Ravens have this is a huge spot for them. The skeletons, they have to throw them into the closet. They're going to drop the first couple games in the season. We've seen that before, but this is right here early in the season, late September, early October. They start to right the ship, and I think the Chiefs, they gave the Giants way too many opportunities in that game. Their offense just not has not been explosive for the Ravens. I think they tweak a few things here and there. Derrick Henry, runs through the ball trainer a couple times, and this team goes on the road and beats the Chiefs. There's going to be a couple mischievous calls. There's going to be a couple, voodoo magic going on.
In
But I
Kansas
think the
City.
Ravens pull out the win 27-24.
Hey, no Isaiah Likely in this game. So hey, feet inbounds and Derrick Henry. But I'm
Hey,
still picking
Isaiah
the
Pacheco,
Chiefs.
let's try to hit the hole in between the offensive linemen. All right.
At least Henry can still run the ball. We could say that. I'm going with the Chiefs in this game. I'm going 20-18. But let's move on now to Sunday night football. We have the Green Bay Packers traveling to Dallas. Green Bay favored by 6.5 points on the road. Obviously, the biggest storyline in this game. It's going to be broadcast all week long. We're already seeing the ads and the promo videos. I mean, you can't avoid it. I mean, it's everywhere, right? It's the return of what's his name? Who's the defensive tackle that the Cowboys have that they traded for?
Kenny Clark.
Kenny Clark. It's the return of Kenny Clark to Green Bay. I mean, that's what we're really talking about
Well, this
here.
game is in Dallas.
It's Kenny Clark facing his former team in the pack. No, obviously it's Micah Parsons returning to Dallas to face his former team. Long, hard offseason of negotiating that eventually led to Parsons being traded to Green Bay, where through 3 games he's been an all-star defensively, and he's made this Packers defense look like one of the best in all of football. Obviously, they lost last week. You really can't pin that on the defense because they played their asses off, really only letting up 3 points. And the only touchdown the Browns got was off a J no interception down to the 4 yard line, where it took the Browns, I don't know, 20 attempts to punch it in finally. And I just think that this is a huge spot for Parsons and this revamped Packers defense to let loose on this flailing Cowboys team. Or even offensively last week, CeeDee Lamb goes out and they lose their whole offensive identity. And that was the whole thing of, hey, you can't pay Dak, Micah, and CD because there's no one left to pay. This team is pretty garbage. And if one of these guys misses time, you're going to see these holes be very apparent on both sides of the ball. And now you don't have Parsons or CeeDee Lamb. So your offense is completely hamstrung. Your defense, woof. I mean, Russell Wilson had the best quarterback performance of the season, and he's benched now after 1 week of playing a competent NFL defense. And then Caleb Williams has his best game as an NFL pro. And if you look at every single touchdown he threw, they were wide open. And that's because they're not getting a single pass rush. And I don't know. The Cowboys are a wreck. Now, this game, the biggest thing I'm looking for is how does Jordan Love shake back against a bad defense? Because against a good defense in the Browns, where their offense was putting no pressure on you whatsoever into making mistakes, into playing outside of your norm, and you still make these back-breaking plays where it's you throw a pick right there, just trying to ice the game, where if that pass is incomplete, you're punting it away to Joe Flacco, and you're expecting Joe Flacco to march 80 yards down the field against a defense that's given up 3 points all game long. That just wasn't going to happen. So the fact Jordan Love put you in that situation, it's very concerning because that's the thing with him, right? It's these high peaks and these low valleys. Now, if there's ever a defense to get right on, it is this Cowboys defense. So I'm expecting a big performance. But Laraib, what do you need to see from Jordan Love in this game?
You want to see him really spread the ball around. It's tough to give him a pass for last week, but Myles Garrett and Jim Schwartz and company just wrecked that game completely on its head. The good thing is, Lewis, like you mentioned, this Cowboys defense, anemic is not even the word to use. Most passing yards allowed, third most total yards allowed, worst third down percentage, second most touchdowns allowed. You can touch this defense in all sorts of different kind of ways. And that's exactly what I expect this Packers team to do. Josh Jacobs, Juz, as we like to call him, a little bit of a no factor last week, but in this game, Kyle Monangai can get 26 yards on 6 carries against the Cowboys. I think Josh Jacobs can do a lot better than that. This is just going to be a game we're going to see belt to ass, and I really don't want to put too much stock in what we see out of the Packers in this one, just because it is not going to be close. Everyone's focused on Micah Parsons. I think this Packers offense lights up this horrid Cowboys defense, and the Packers win 36-17.
I'm going to say Micah Parsons gets 2 sacks in this game. I'll put the line at 1.5, and I'm going over. I'm saying 2 sacks in his debut. He said it's going to pain him to sack Dak Prescott. Yeah, freaking right. The moment you get your arms around for that first sack and you hear that Dallas crowd boo, they're not booing you. They're booing Jerry Jones and this Cowboys team. You're going to bask in it like a gladiator in a Roman Coliseum because this is your moment and you're going to shine. And ultimately, I think the Packers offense will be better. I don't think they're going to be completely gangbusters because I think it might take Jordan Love a few weeks. But I mean, it's to the point where you said it. This Cowboys defense has just turned into the get right game for offenses. So if this is the propeller for Jordan Love to go forward, I think this is it. So I'm going to go Packers 42 to Cowboys 13. Yikes.
All right, well, that's going to wrap it up for our highlighted games, Lewis, but still plenty of regular games that
Plenty.
we don't want to talk about. Starting off with your New Orleans Saints going to Buffalo. The Buffalo Bills are favored by 15 and a half points at home. A long rest for them, Lewis. Which way are you leaning in this one?
I can't remember the last time I saw a spread that big in week 4 of the NFL season, but that's to show you the caliber of both of these teams. Um, yeah, I'm gonna go Buffalo in this game, even though it is Spencer Rattler and Tyler Shuck's birthday on Saturday the 28th, or on Sunday the 28th. Um, the Josh Allen's going to give a lot of gifts, and they're going to be belts, and he's going to be bringing it to him time and time again. I don't think it's going to be a blowout. I think the Bills are just going to rest on their laurels at halftime. I'm going to go Bills 30 to Saints 13.
Let's just say the Saints special teams is going to be giving the Bills a lot of gifts, and the Bills will be giving them back even larger gifts. I
Mm.
think the Bills win 36 to 17.
All right, let's move on now, Laraib, to the next noon game. We have the Commanders traveling to Atlanta to face the Falcons. Commanders only favored by 1.5. The book is making me think. So Jaden Daniels is considered questionable, but the line being set at 1.5 is making me skeptical on whether or not he's going to play, which we saw last week. Mariota looked pretty dang good against that Raiders defense. Now you're playing a pretty crummy Falcons team coming off an embarrassing defeat where it's like maybe we don't rush Jaden back, we give him another week. I think that's a mistake because I have the Falcons coming back from a woeful defeat, and I have them winning this game. I think Penix gets his get back. Sometimes you just need to get shaken up a bit, right? And boy, were they shaken up by a team they clearly underestimated. Now they realize we can't underestimate anybody, and they're going to go into this game. Let's do our things right offensively, defensively. We'll have opportunities against this Commanders team. You know, didn't really play that impressively against the Raiders last week. So I'm going to say Atlanta pulls off what might be considered a shocking upset, even though they're only a 1.5 point dog. I'm going Atlanta 23 to Commander 17.
And you and I talked about this. Young Wei Koo put the voodoo on the Falcons, and now they're doo-doo. I just think this is a spot for the
Wow.
Falcons. You said it, this Commanders defense is not good. You know who's worse than the Commanders defense? The
Ooh.
Panthers defense, and they shut them out. Shut them out. I mean, they'd put a 30 burger on your head, and then you couldn't even go down and kick a fucking field goal. And now you're telling me they're going to beat this Commanders team with Mari Goda in at quarterback, who looked outstanding last week. I mean, he had that one bad fumble on that huge run, thinking he was back at Oregon, but I think he learned
Hey.
some more ball security this week against this Falcons team, who got 30 burgered on their head by Bryce Young and Chuba Hubbard and Rico Dowdle. And now you're going back home. I think Raheem Morris is one of these sneaky head coaches to be fired first. And I think they lose this game, and his ass gets a lot warmer. I think the Commanders win 30 to 24.
You make some pretty compelling points. I'm going to stick with my pick because I think it'll be a very sharp play by me, not leaning too far into last week's biases. But man, it's hard to argue with a lot of the points we just made. But going on
My
now,
voodoo point.
the Curse of the Eastern Dragon is definitely filling my mind right now. But we have the Cleveland Browns traveling to Detroit. Browns are a 9.5 point underdog in Detroit. Detroit seeming like they got their mojo back. Could this be a potential trap game? I don't think so. I think that Jim Schwartz obviously has, it's been a while since he's been in the Detroit building as their former head coach. But I think the Browns win last week honestly made them less scary in this matchup because it's like, oh, well, we're not taking them seriously. But now it's like, oh, shoot, they just beat the Packers who beat us. So we're not going to take them any less seriously than we would any opponent, right? So Dan Campbell, master motivator, he's going to get his guys up for this game. They're going to take this Browns team very seriously. And I think this is the week the Browns offense I mean, it was already anemic, but I think this is the week where they're like, man, Joe Flacco, he's begging to get out of this game. And Shador's on the sideline, just QB3 in it. His scout team is his Super Bowl. But this will not be the Browns Super Bowl. I'm going to have the Lions winning 41 to 10.
I want to give this Browns defense a little bit more respect than that. Huge credit to the Lions last week. My thoughts for this Lions team coming to the year, I thought the coordinators would be a bigger loss than the culture that Dan Campbell instilled in Detroit, but that has not been the case through 3 weeks so far. They dropped week one, but really, really impressive in these past 2 weeks. I like the Browns defense in this one, but they're just not going to be able to put up any points. I think the Lions win this one 26-14.
Do not listen to Laraib's take on the Dan Campbell versus the coordinators 2 weeks ago. You will not like to hear that answer, or mine, to be fair. Next game up, we have the Carolina Panther juggernauts traveling to New England to face the Patriots. Patriots are 5.5-point favorites at home. Like I mentioned with the Steelers game, the Patriots outgained and pretty much outplayed the Steelers. It was just the awful turnovers that really killed them in that game. And now you're playing a Panthers team who they just played their best game probably all season. I mean, even if they are a good team some way, they're not going to 30-0 shut out another team this season. And I'm not going to give them that credit. I think they get a little too high on their own supply. Now, traveling to New England team that knows it can play better and just needs to figure their stuff out. I mean, if Ramondre fumbles this game, you really have to cut him or, I don't know, shoot him at the end of the day because, man, it's really killing the team year after year after year. But I'm going to give the Patriots their credit. I think they are the better, more talented team, and I think they're going to beat the Panthers 26-20.
Yeah, this Patriots team, you can start to see them, the Vrabel culture slowly and slowly being instilled there. And I really think they're gonna, start fixing those mistakes, starting with those four fumbles, starting with that awful end zone interception from Drake May. I think they're gonna start preaching ball security a lot more. And it really starts with the quarterback. But against this Panthers team who got fat and happy beating the stinking, Falcons last week. The Patriots, Travion Henderson, he's your guy. You went out and drafted him. No, we're gonna give Antonio Gibson some burn. Like, what the fuck are we doing? But I think they figure some shit out this week, and the Patriots win 27-17.
All right, next up, we have the battle of the 0-3 teams in the AFC South. The Houston Texans are hosting the Tennessee Titans. Houston, 7.5-point favorites. And I mean, we always talk about loser leaves town games. This is the epitome of that. I mean, if you fall 0-4, I don't think there's never been an 0-4 team to make the playoffs, even in the expanded 17 game setting. It has not happened. And even though we both had pretty high expectations for this Texans team, if they lose to the Titans, their season's over. And as for the Titans, I mean, if they lose, it's just they're not that good of a team. I'm gonna pick the Texans this one. They have to win. That defense is too talented. CJ Stroud needs to figure out, and against this Titans defense, there should be ample opportunity to figure that out. So I'm gonna pick the Texans in this one, 30-20.
Yeah, rewatching the two worst offensive lines in the league, going head to head in this one. I just think Nico Collins is the best offensive player on the field, and he'll figure something out for this team. I think the Texans win a close one, 20-17.
All right, moving on over to the 3 o'clock window. We have the Jacksonville Jaguars traveling to Santa Clara to face the Niners. Niners are 3.5-point favorites and continue to drop like flies. Nick Bosa tears his ACL and he will be out for the entire season. Some good news on the horizon. Looks like Brock Purdy is aiming to come back this week. So you have him back in, even though Mac Jones filled in pretty admirably, going 2-0 in his starts and, orchestrating well thought out game plans against not the greatest competition, but still doing his thing. Now, even if it's Mac or Purdy, I think this offense, it's so McCaffrey dependent, and that Achilles is hanging on by this thread right now, and it's just waiting to pop like a weasel. So if you want McCaffrey, trade for him, please. But they're putting it way too much, and their offense is it's not the same. Offensive line isn't looking great, and that defense is just dropping so many players. Even, the rookie out of Georgia, Michael Williams, dealing with an injury, even though he's had a pretty impressive start to the season. And this Jaguars defense has been pretty impressive to me. I think that as long as Trevor Lawrence doesn't get all of his receivers killed this game, that their offense can do just enough to eke out a win on the road in an upset. I'm going with the Jaguars 17-14.
I just can't pick this Jaguars team against most teams in the NFL. Trevor Lawrence has not been impressive so far.
No.
You can talk about his hospital balls, but He he had some awful interceptions, man. I mean, he left the door wide open for the Texans last week. Um, just so many picks week one, week two. He has four, I think, so far this season. Just not impressive. And then for the 49ers, you can tell me they're missing a bunch of guys defensively, and I have to give you credit for that. But Robert Saleh has come in and
Thanks.
he's really had a great design for this defense. He's schemed up a lot of things, and I think Trevor Lawrence, he will be seeing Ghost out there in Santa Clara. Santa Clara. It's always a little hard for these East Coast teams to travel all the way to the West Coast. I think the 49ers win a close one, 24-21.
Another example of an Eastern team traveling to the West Coast, we have the Chicago Bears traveling to Las Vegas. Let's see if your logic still holds up in this one. Bears played the JV Cowboys defense. That offense looked like, hey, Caleb Williams, we're fine, right? We've settled everything in. Everything is great. All roads lead to Rome. And now you're playing a Raiders team that really struggled on the road last week. I think that maybe that was just a big confidence boost game from the Bears. I think this will be a really good test to see because now you're playing a more of a legitimate defensive identity of a team. Max Crosby and Pete Carroll. It is, in Las Vegas, probably majority Bears fans there. Um, but I just think that they found something out identity wise. I think that Ben Johnson's starting to script up a lot better of a plan for Caleb. And Caleb, hung in there like because he was facing some pressure and hung in there on a lot of throws. Delivered the ball, and on that last touchdown drive where he hit DJ Moore in the back of the end zone, it was a long drive where he made a lot of impressive plays. With his legs on the move, just really orchestrating the offense. So I think that's going to carry over here. And I like the Bears, kind of get their momentum going and reach 2-2. And it's like, hey, not that bad of a start to the season. I'm going to go Bears 23 to Raiders or 26 to Raiders 20.
Yeah, like you mentioned, really impressed by Caleb Williams and the accuracy that he's built on so far. A lot of misses week one against the Vikings, but he's slowly started to build on that. The one issue I had seen from this Bears team, and it was kind of worrying me against the Cowboys last week. This team gets into a lot of third and long situations. They really have not been able to run the ball with DeAndre Swift that well. And Common Unguy, for some reason, they don't want to get him the ball. But
Why are we
yeah,
bringing up
they've
his
been in so
name?
many third and longs on that last drive, like you mentioned, where they did get that DJ Moore touchdown, you're impressed by their ability to convert those, but that's just not something you can sustain over a season. I'm interested to see how they, try to fix some of those issues, especially against the Raiders team who got ran all over, thrown all over by Marcus Mariota last week. This is another week to build on Caleb Williams' confidence. I think the Bears win 31-24.
All right, now we're moving on to my favorite thing ever. We have a Monday Night Football doubleheader. And the fact that we haven't talked about either game means they're both pretty mediocre. And not only mediocre, they're both ass. Starting off with the New York Jets traveling to Miami, two 0-3 garbage teams. Miami favored by 2.5. Justin Fields, Tyrod Taylor. This Jets team still has talent throughout the roster. We saw them put up a pretty impressive fight against the Bucks last week, albeit that game looked like a blowout for majority of the game. They still had, I think Aaron Glenn starting to kind of build that identity. But I'm gonna pick the Jets. I mean the Dolphins in this game. I'm picking the Dolphins. I just honestly they're favored. Like I don't want to pick the Dolphins. I just think that they showed me something, and now they have a long rest. McDaniel wasn't fired over that long rest, not yet. This is the game they should be able to get right, but it really wouldn't surprise me if they lost
Shout out Aaron Glenn and his Tampa two-step after that blocked field goal return for a touchdown. Probably the highlight of that game,
this
besides
season.
Emeka Egbuka one-handed catch for the Buccaneers.
Hello.
But yeah, like you mentioned, the Dolphins longer rest. I'm still impressed by Mike McDaniel as a head coach. Call me crazy. In that game against the Bills, he had so many schemes that he built up offensively for this team where guys are wide open and Tua, to his credit, was hitting them until he threw that dumbass pick and they end up losing the game. I still like Mike McDaniel. I think he's still one of the top offensive minds in the game. His scheme is very easy. I mean, Tua succeeded in it the past couple of seasons. Now this quarterback is just the CTE is catching up to him real fast. I haven't seen any dumbass pressers for him from this so far this week, but
Ooh.
I'm sure one's coming up, on Thursday or Friday. So I'm excited for that. But uh, And this Dolphins team just has more talent. I think Tyreek Hill is trying to put on some more game tape before he gets traded to the Chiefs. I think the Dolphins found a way to win this one, 20-17.
All right, and then finally, my score, I'm going to say 23-17. That was a good score. I like it a lot. My final game is the Cincinnati Bengals traveling to Denver to play the Broncos. Broncos are 7.5 point favorites, and wow, that Bengals offense looked anemic against the Vikings last week. Now you're traveling to Denver. You could say is an underwhelming defense this season, given the standard that we kind of held them to entering the season. Still a very tough environment to play in at night in Denver against that defense. Jake Browning just shitting down his leg all game long against the Vikings last week. And I don't think that's going to change here. I think that potential get right game for the Broncos offense, Bo Nix, hit some balls down deep. That was a big thing, missing a lot of guys and schemed open situations where it felt like everything was in place for him to make the play and he couldn't. So this is an opportunity on a big stage on Monday Night Football to show that he can. But I mean, two backup quarterbacks, except one of them was always been the starter. I'm gonna go with Bo Nix, and I'm gonna go with the Broncos in a lower scoring game. I'm gonna go 23-10.
This is a low-key, very important game for the Broncos. They're 1-2, and if they drop this one to the Bengals, looking at 1-3 would be a very tough start to a season where they were supposed to be, competing to win this division against the Chiefs and the Chargers. But like you mentioned, this Bengals team is just ass, whichever way you look at it. Especially Jake Browning. I can't believe I picked this team to win last week. I think the Broncos they really lay down the hammer in this one. Bo Nix, like you mentioned, a couple missed balls last week. I think guys are gonna be streaking wide open in this one. Give me the Broncos 31-13.
All right, Laraib, that's going to do it for our full week 4 picks. But before we go, we have our locks, upsets, and best bets of the week. Laraib, who is your lock of the week?
My lock of the league, I have to ride with Justin Herbert and the Chargers. Going to New York, I know it's hard for those West Coast teams to go to the East Coast, but Jackson Dart, excuse me, in his first ever start. We know those young rookie quarterbacks struggle in their first ever game facing Jesse Minter and this, not the biggest household names in Bud Dupree and Tuli Palatu coming after you, but they've had good scheme. I think they beat this Giants team and give me the Chargers in my lock.
Yeah, after talking through some of these games, I think I changed my mind. I am going to go with the Green Bay Packers as my lock for this week. I just think there's way too many advantages they have on both sides of the ball. And just emotionally, I think there's a huge spot for Parsons. Without CeeDee Lamb, I think this Cowboys offense really is going to be a lot of dinking and dacking down the field, a lot of Jake Ferguson receptions. Yes, come here. But ultimately, it's not a winning formula. And I think the Packers are going to win this game. And then for my upset of the week, Laraib, I talked about it. It's the Jacksonville Jaguars. Duval. They served me right last week. I think they're going to serve me right again against this hospital of the San Francisco 49ers. Brock Purdy coming back. I don't think he's going to be 100% against a pretty good Jaguars defense so far this season. And as long as Trevor Lawrence doesn't make too many back-breaking mistakes or concussion-causing mistakes, I think they're going to be in a prime position to win a tough game on the road.
Yeah, that's an awful upset picking Trevor Lawrence. For my upset, I'm going to go with Indiana Jones facing the awful Los Angeles Rams. You talk about a team who doesn't have a home field advantage. You're always harping on my Chargers. They play in the same fucking stadium as the Rams. And who's a Rams fan these days? Nobody.
Whose house? Rams
Yeah.
house.
Hey, no one has ever done that in SoFi Stadium. I'll tell you that much. I think the Colts, people are sleeping on this team and the Rams are sleeping on this team. I was not impressed with their second half, the Rams in that game against the Eagles. The Colts ground and pound this game and get the upset over the Rams.
Well, that's a perfect segue into my best bet where I have the Rams -3.5. Finally, Indiana Jones gets to play a real team, and we're going to be sitting around like, dang, remember Daniel Jones' start to the 2025 season? That was pretty cool. We had a fun nickname for him, and the Colts looked decent until they lost 8 games in a row. Yeah, I think that'll be the start of the decline, and I think it's going to be big and messy, and I like the Rams spread. Whose house? Rams house.
And for my best bet, I'm going with the Chicago Bears, not playing in Chicago like you told me so many times last year,
Hello.
but going to Las Vegas, another team with not the greatest fan base, especially after moving to Las Vegas, especially with the tourism down in Las Vegas, they are begging people to go. Maybe we should go back to the
Hello.
back to the Bacchanal. I
Hello.
think there's a good spot for the Bears, favored by only 1.5. I think that's a good bet.
All right, and then that's gonna wrap it up for the full week 4 picks and predictions. We'll be should be back to our regular schedule next week with our full week 4 recap and week 5 preview. So be looking out for that. Do you agree with our picks? You disagree with our picks? Let us know in the comments below. But again, super excited for an awesome week of NFL football. Laraib, you got anything for us before we get out of here today?
No, this is the First and Goal podcast signing off.
Right.